Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Astrology Today and Tarot. My name is Mel Rose. This is the Tarot portion and the second half of my daily astrology vlog, which you can check out on my other channel, Astrology Today with Mel Rose. Over there, you'll find a description of the day's astrology as I have spelled it out here. Here, I will discuss the tarot card that sits on the side of the page, and then I'll play another card that, in the context of the day's astrology, may give us something more to think about. So, let's get into it. The card that currently sits on the side of the page is a new one, friends. It's the Seven of Swords. And it's here because it represents in astrology, or corresponds, is more like it, in astrology, with the last 10 days, or the third decan of the sun's transit here in the land of Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign. Swords in Tarot are air element symbolism, and air element symbolism is very much about the intellect, our capacity to analyze things, our rational perception, how we think, what we plan, how we communicate. So thoughts, plans, and words, friends. So we come to the Seven of Swords, and we see somebody sort of, it would appear that they're making off with something that's not really theirs to make off with, right? So this is a card about deception. It's about trickery and you know, sort of having to look over our shoulder, or even sometimes turning a blind eye to things that are going on. So, you know, this person, if you think of those swords as thoughts, words, and plans, this person appears to be trying to make off with somebody else's good ideas, right? Or their plans, or their thoughts, or actually maybe even stealing away with their words to share them in a different context, right? So the first thing that always comes to my mind is to look out for your creative content that you know, if you have creative content, you know, make sure that nobody is pulling one over on you, taking advantage of the content that you've made available, and make sure you know, get your credit where it is due, right? And at the same time, also make sure that you're not, you know, engaging in some kind of trickery or you know, falsification when it comes to other people's ideas and content. We don't want to pretend that something somebody else did is something that we actually did, and the problem with that is that when we lie, when we engage in deception or trickery, when we try to come off as being something that we are not, or somebody that we are not, or when we try to present ideas and communications and plans and even sort of, you know, artistic expression that is not ours, if we try to share it as though it is ours, what we're going to wind up doing is having a guilty conscience and sort of constantly looking back over our shoulder, right? And then the other part of this is, you know, not turning a blind eye when we see somebody doing something like that. It's important to stay honest ourselves, not to let anybody else implicate us in their dishonest behavior or activities. Okay, so sometimes we feel like we are under pressure to be dishonest to get what it is that we want, and that's like, you know, for me that would be like that temptation that you have to lie on your resume, or, you know, a temptation you have just to submit somebody else's work or ideas as though they are your own. You know, again, when you do something like that, you always run the risk of getting found out, and knowing that you run the risk of getting found out puts you in a really stressful place, okay? It makes it very difficult to get by like that, because you're always just trying to sort of stay on top of the last lie that you told, right? So let's not do that. Let's not be that deceptive, tricky person, and let's not allow ourselves to turn a blind eye to other people's trickery either. And with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn this card over. Okay, so this is the Arthurian deck that I use. This is the first deck I ever had, and it's about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, that whole story. If you haven't read anything about it or read into it, my favorite take on that story is The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, because it's the same story, but it's told from the perspective of the women in the story, and it gives it a different sort of shade and color and drama. So check into that if you feel like it. So here we have the wounded king, and you know, there's a certain part of King Arthur's story where he's wounded. He's not really able to go out and fight, but there still has to be peace in the land. So everybody else has gone out, is away fighting, and he just sort of has to stay at home and heal and wait for things to unfold. So the Wounded King corresponds in a standard tarot deck with the Hanged Man. It's a person who's sort of on an enforced leave of absence, right? Where you just have to sort of hang out and gain perspective and see what's going to happen, right? So it can be uncomfortable, right? And we can feel like we're very much left out, and we can feel like we are non-contributors. And really, traditionally, like before the days of King Arthur, if a king was wounded, he wouldn't be king for long, right? The old-fashioned way was, for kings to either be sort of unthroned or even just taken out completely if they showed any sign of weakness, or if they got wounded very badly, they would just sort of take them out of the picture and assign a new king who is probably younger and stronger and more capable and unwounded. But here we have in this story the Wounded King, and this is a person that sort of has to wait for to see if the confidence he has placed in his knights and in his armies and his subjects, if he has to wait and see if that confidence has borne out for him, in a positive way. And he's also sort of waiting to heal from some wounds. So it's a matter of gaining introspection. It's a matter of gaining perspective and seeing sort of what's going on around us, and really not having the power to make any moves, really just sort of being in this enforced place of yes, observation and waiting. And that can be frustrating, but it's also just an opportunity to sort of learn and grow, to heal, and to become a little bit more like ourselves, to gain some perspective on what other people can do when we can't be involved, right? On what other people are capable of doing, when we're not available to do the stuff that we would normally do. Sometimes we, as leaders, especially the Wounded King is a leader. So as leaders, sometimes we have to get out of the way and allow other people to take command of a situation. That's an interesting correlation to something that I've been dealing with lately, because I'm getting ready to actually retire from my job as a massage therapist after 20 years. And so, I'm no longer sort of taking the lead in the place where I work. I'm no longer sort of trying to show people how things are done, or not even showing people how things are done, but I'm no longer taking any sort of leadership role there. I'm sort of just letting the next person be that person, and trying to retreat and allow things to unfold without me being so much in charge or in control of things, or even so very helpful as I have been in the past. So that's kind of the feeling, is sort of stepping back and letting other people take care of business while I just observe and really ready myself for the change that I'm going through, the healing that I'm going to go through, and for the change in perspective on my whole life that I'm going to go through when I'm no longer doing massage all the time. So where do we see the Hanged Man or the Wounded King here on the page? Just giving a little bit of a moment of perspective on that. I mean, really what I would say here is this impending conjunction of Mercury and Pluto, which is coming up tomorrow. But it's a vibe that's been building this week, and it will go on for about another week. But really, a really brief, very powerful moment when, it's like our conscious rationale, our ability to think, plan, and communicate, swords, right? Mercury, sort of is under pressure and intensified and brightened by its apparent collision with Pluto. And they don't collide. They're nowhere near each other. They're not ever going to collide with one another. But from our perspective, if we could see Pluto through a telescope, we'd be able to see Mercury and Pluto right in the same place in the sky from our perspective. Because this is here, that's here in the middle, and this is just what we see from the Earth-centered perspective. So Mercury conjunct to Pluto, that's your rationale, your thoughts, plans, and words. And then Pluto is like the interior depths. It's about what is underneath. It's about the stuff that gets beyond the emotion, you know, what's happening in the intuition, what's happening in the subconscious, you know, what kind of questions come up when we have an experience, what sort of intuitive knowing occurs to us when we have new experiences. And also just with Pluto, there's this ability to see to the core of things, not just to the core of ourselves, which is a very powerful thing to be able to do, but to the core of situations, to understand, you know, kind of what things are about. Instead of getting distracted by what's happening, we come to a deeper understanding of what things are about. So if you have noticed that in yourself lately, you know, there's this sort of pause. It's, you know, it's funny, Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, so it's you know, it's very hot and it's very active, and Pluto is the farthest planet from the sun, and it is very cold and it moves very slowly. So there's this sort of dichotomy there where, you know, you might be able to exercise leadership, you might be able to think, plan, and communicate, but you know, also have this power to sort of see to the core of the necessity of stepping back, to see to the core of the necessity of you know, things unfolding the way that they are without too much of your own interaction, right? Sometimes when we can sort of really see directly to the center of a situation, you know, we're looking at a situation and perhaps it's a problem or perhaps it's a good thing, but we're trying to think like, what can I do to be engaged in this situation? What can I do to help solve a problem? What can I do to help further a plan or something? And then when we take a really good look at it and we see the thing as it is, you know, at its center, but also, you know, as it is as a whole, because we've stopped to get a perspective, we realize there's really nothing we have to do, and we can allow it to unfold and we can allow it to come up. And if anything, you know, then we just get an opportunity there to sort of express, like, this is what I see, and I see now that I don't really have to do anything to allow this to unfold and do what it's supposed to do, right? The moon is trine to both Mercury and Pluto today, and that didn't come up in the aspects, but it's very, it's almost like that ability to see to the core, that deep insight. It's a very personal thing. It's a very felt thing at this time. So whatever emotions do come up for you today, you know, the moon is going to be in Libra most of the day. So we're thinking about balance and equity in our relationships and our investments. And the moon's going to be in opposition to Jupiter today. So we're a really generous feeling. We're very social and friendly. We sort of feel the expansion and growth in our lives, and we want to share that with others, right? You know, being able to look deeply within ourselves, you know, then when those emotions come up, we sort of understand already what is going on, like where those emotions are coming from, what is going on as a result of that. So that's really good. That's a very good thing. It can be a very intense thing to be like, whoa, I get like on a really deep level what is happening here, and I didn't expect that to happen, right? So that can be a rather intense experience. And it can even sometimes feel a little bit like a physical wounding that's going to take you out of the game for a minute, right? But it's overall a very positive experience. That trine aspect there is saying that, you know, when you feel that and you notice what's going on, sort of past the emotions and past the sort of bustle and confusion of any kind of situation that you might find yourself in, you're going to notice that it's really easy to see what's going on and to you know, accept it and work with it and move through it with ease. As long as you're willing to just take that pause and do the contemplation and sort of see what you're meant to see there. And when we put this together with the Six of Swords, I'm trying to figure out how close I can get these two together without that light. Okay, so we put this together with the, not the Six of Swords, but the Seven of Swords. You know, it's, you know, perhaps sometimes when we take that pause, when we, you know, that sort of enforced pause because, you know, we're sick or we have some other reason why we have to stop and wait for something to unfold before we can move forward. We have to gain the insight and the introspection. Sometimes we're afraid that we're going to lose something. You know, part of having to take a pause means having to slow down, having to wait for something to unfold, and perhaps we feel like we had better be making progress at a time when we are not making progress. The problem with the Seven of Swords is that we sometimes feel this pressure to even look as though we're making progress and having good ideas and being in charge of things and you know, unfolding plans and things all of the time. We feel this pressure, and so we might sort of lie to ourselves, or we might even try to deceive others, you know, just by saying, oh no, I'm working on something very important over here, you know, while you're actually taking a pause to reflect. So just understand, you don't have to deceive anybody about it. You don't have to deceive yourself about it, okay? It's going to be really hard to deceive yourself at this time anyway, and it would be really hard at this time for anybody else to deceive you too. So don't worry about people making off with your good ideas while you take a pause. Don't worry about people, you know, sort of lying to you or deceiving you while you're taking this pause, because your ability to really see the truth of the deeper inner truth of things is strong at this time. All right. So, you know, whatever it is that you're waiting for to unfold at this time, you don't have to worry about it slipping away from you. You don't have to worry about the resources you've stacked up or the good ideas you have or the plans that you have to sort of get frittered away from you either, because you're going to see everything that's happening and you're going to understand it very well. And there are a lot of things you won't even have to act on, right? It's not even about like turning a blind eye, you know, to people when they behave badly. It's really just like you can say, yeah, I saw that. I'm over here gaining perspective, you know. But you'll be able to see the truth of any situation, especially a situation where somebody's trying to deceive you, you know, very clearly at this time. So I wouldn't worry about it. I think that's all I have to say about it today, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate your presence here. My name is Mel Rose, and I'll see you all back here tomorrow for more Astrology Today and Tarot.